How y'all doing? We get things set up as usual. Alright. Well, things are going pretty good here. Yesterday I got an interesting suggestion for a game to try out. I haven't looked into it clearly enough, but it was a visual novel called The Spectre's Desire. Seemed a bit interesting from what I could find. The only thing is that I wasn't too sure I could get it for either of the platforms I play on. Like, it being a visual novel, it shouldn't pose too many problems through the main routes to get the game. But there are problems in it, like one thing I've seen was at least one of the platforms that might not be supported anymore. Because the way it was going, it seems like a 32-bit application, and I had no problem with apps being 32-bit. The problem comes that operating systems these days, they're trying to kind of cut out the 64-bit functionality, regardless of if you're looking at Mac, Windows, or Linux. And there just seem to be things suggesting that it wouldn't work anymore. Like, I didn't see any big things that said this game won't run on this version of Mac OS, which is a big hint. That it would be 32-bit. But it was more so like that Steam was kind of ending support for those things, more so. So pretty much, I do accept recommendations if you guys have any. But keep in mind, my main platforms are on consoles like the original Switch and the PS5. So if it's not on any of those, I'm likely not gonna get it done, especially if I'm to stream it. If I'm to play it on my own, then it wouldn't matter too much. But there's a lot that I have to take into account because it's not so easy to deal with my setup here. Like, heck, I don't even have the room for another computer. Anyway, there's today's question of the day. Favorite dessert, huh? I'd probably say the closest dessert for me, being my favorite, would be apple pie. But I'm not much of a dessert person, really. But yeah, that's about as close to it. Like, my favorite candy bar is Butterfinger. I haven't had them in a while. I'm just not really that much of a dessert person, though. I should probably bring this up, though. Don't go dark. Alright. But yeah. So just keep that in mind, guys. Recommendations are allowed, and I accept them. They just have to be available on PlayStation or Switch. As for anything on Switch 2, I'm not too sure if and when I'm gonna get that. Like, I am interested in the Switch 2, just because it gives me access to a version of Mario Kart that's easier. Oh, hey Titan. I'm glad you made it. But how are you doing? Because right now I'm just taking care of pre-stream stuff. Oh, nice. What are you gonna do today? For your day off? Gonna do some Genshin? Oh. I hope you enjoy that. I still have to get onto the Archon quest myself and that, which should be happening pretty soon, but I don't know how long this game is going to take me, because I have to get some keys in order to unlock the ending. Those can be quite a pain. Especially now that in Genshin we're limited to only 3 condensed resin. Like, sure, we get triple rewards now for using resin, but come on, why lower it to 3? But I'm glad you're here, Titan. Well, I use 40 resin too, typically, to get double rewards. Yeah, it is, but triple makes it so much easier to get the gold books and such that we need for characters. Especially because you're more likely to triple crown than I am. Yeah, that is true. But we can always use the strong box to get better artifacts, at least if they already existed in past patches, couldn't we? Like, Golden Troop has been added to his strong box for who knows how long now. Oh, you haven't? Well, you pretty much should. It's a good way to change out the artifacts. The only other option we have to get rid of dumb artifacts is that little thing that they keep bugging us about in our backpacks. But anyway, I got done with the pre-streams stuff now, but I need a drink, so yeah, that's good. Anyway, like I said, I got done with the pre-stream stuff, so I'm gonna go get a drink, and then I will get things set to be started. So, hey, all of you out there, just do what you need to get ready for the stream, but if you need something to do, be sure to check out today's question of the day. If you guys don't see it, the command in the title of the stream while I'm live should bring it up, and I'll check it out. That's good that you're resting, and sorry about the sprain. But I'll be right back, Titan. Alright guys, I'm back. Let's see what I missed. Ah, you like triple chocolate cake, huh, Titan? That sounds like a good dessert. So I'm gonna switch inputs here, and then we can get started as soon as I get the game up. Alright. And hopefully today the game sounds good, because on my end it was a bit crazy. Oh, that sounds good too. My answer to that question was apple pie. I'm not really much of a dessert person, honestly, but that's about the closest that I'll take almost every single time. Alright, and here we are. Good morning, everyone. Hope you all are doing well. So I said I got a interesting suggestion for a visual novel to try out next, but gotta look into it a bit more. Did sound interesting though. And if any of you have any suggestions, either RPGs or visual novels, feel free to tell me, either in the chat while I'm live right now, or if you're watching this in a VOD in the comments. I'll be sure to check it out, but just keep in mind some games can give me problems. So I might not get to your suggestion right away or even pick it up. But right now, I'm just interested in getting further to be able to access the final chapter of this VN. Let's see. So here. Alright, here we go. It took us less than half an hour to find it. Find it, huh? Of course, it wasn't something that looked like what we were searching for at first glance. But it did seem a bit unnatural. There was a palm-sized crow carved on a wooden surface below the mortar wall. It was the symbol of the Nasato family.
何かの目印ではないですか?
And now it seems to be loud on me. Should just do that. Let's see. Is it a clue?
あるいは仕掛けか?
Or some sort of mechanism. Can you hear things fine, Titan? Because I'm not too sure how the viewers are able to hear it. I just know that it was like a little loud for me. That's good. I'm glad. Okay. Or some sort of mechanism?
やはり、ただの木彫りではない。カラスの体の各部が独立したパーツになっていて。
It's not just a carving. Its parts are separated and movable. Here comes the puzzle.
ボタンですか。ゲームみたいだな。
Buttons, so it's like a game. So he wasn't the only Nasato with strange hobbies, huh?
おそらく、特定の順で操作をすれば仕掛けが作動するのだろうが。
I imagine it expects you to press them in order, but...
心当たりはありますか?
Do you know any hints?
カラスの志。
The will... Let's see, the will of the crow.
そう不死よしに捧ぐるが、カラスの志なり。
Offering those up to Fushioshi shall be as the will of the crow. That had to be it.
野里家のものならば開けられるってわけですか。
So Nasato can open it easily, huh?
ああ、他言無用の家訓だからな。しかし、失敗したときどうなるだろうね。
Yes, we never repeat that teaching to anyone who isn't family. Except, I think you did in a previous loop. I don't think you would know it, Titan, but they did it in previous loop, at least if my memory's right.
先々先代が作らせた仕掛けなら、罠の一つや二つ、仕込んであってもおかしくない。
If it was made by my great-grandfather, then it must be a trap too.
本気ですか。いや、しかし、野里さんは問題なく開けられるはずですよね。
Seriously? But it's no problem for you, is it?
何だったかな。爪だったか、羽だったか。
What was it again? Claw, feather?
まずい。自信がない。君は覚えていないか。
Oh no, I'm not sure. Do you remember it? Hey. Let's see. Okay. Let's see. It doesn't matter what I do. Like, there's wrong choices unlike Genshin, but the story automatically loops me back to a point. Typically, it's been all the way back to the beginning of the story. But I can easily get back here if I get it wrong. Though, let's see. I want to say Beak was last. And this is the only one with Beak being last. So let's check it out.
確か、爪を食ってはどうの、目を食ってはどうの、くちばしを食ってはどうのという感じだったはずです。
I'm pretty sure it's something like devour the claw, eye, and beak.
それでやってみよう。
Really, let's try it. He quickly pressed the buttons as I told him. A moment later, a part of the wall turned 90 degrees. Oh my gosh! This is like the Scooby-Doo and anime traps where the wall moves, isn't it, Titan? It opened up a space through which... Yep. Glad you agree there. Let's see. It opened up a space through which an adult, though probably not Hashimoto-san, could pass. Yeah, I'm kind of getting that feeling too, but that's to be expected because this is a mystery horror visual novel.
お好きだったんでしょうね。こういう仕掛け。
He liked this kind of thing, I assume.
いやはや、なんと恥ずかしい。しかし、その血がなせる技か。
Oh, how embarrassing, but I can't help but feel excited myself. It must be in my blood.
大丈夫です。僕もです。
Don't worry, I feel you. And I'm excited to find out as well what's down here. We bantered nonchalantly despite the dire situation. Once we made it inside, we had to pass through some hanging dried herbs.
なんだこれ。音切り草かなんかですか？
What's this, St. John's wort?
君もディープだな。虫除けになる草が束ねてあるだけだ。
Aren't you knowledgeable? It's just some herbs to repel bugs. Don't mind it.
なるほど。君の言うように、書庫のようになっているようだ。 狭苦しいが、
And it's...
はかなりあるか。
And it seems you're right. It's a study, it's tight in here, but the length is good.
めぼしいところから見ていきましょ
う。Let's see what we can find.
代々の当主の記述あたりが出るといいんだが。
I hope we have records made by the previous
う。あり
heads.
ましたよ。日記帳。
I found a diary.
早速かね。ちょっと貸してくれたまえ。
Already? Well, let me look. We started looking around. Like we expected, the thick diary had writings left by all the previous heads of the Nasato family. It began with his great-grandfather, and the others added more after their retirements. All of them had strange handwriting, and according to what Kinosuke Shi could make out, it was a highly detailed document and had references to other texts here. You could really tell it belonged to a family of scholars. Family of scholars? I thought these guys were a family of doctors, but then again, medicine does have its place in research, too. The index on the diary referenced the documents all over the room. And the diary itself. It's like a description of what went on behind the scenes in Fujiyoshi. Kinosuke Shi's grandfather was a genius who gathered immense wealth, but also a madman who threw it all away. I wish they kept the image being them looking at the books instead of going to this flashlight. What about you, Titan? Let's see. Kinosuke Shi's great-grandfather was a genius who gathered immense wealth, but also a madman who threw it all away. Yeah. But oh well, at least we're finding out more details. That's what matters here. See, his writings were especially difficult to read, analyze, and understand. However, the feeling behind it couldn't be more obvious. It was anguish. Anguish at the fact that he'd found a rational solution and began to doubt the superstitions. The preamble went like this. Why do we submit to greater hate Lord Shinai? Outsiders would see our beliefs as pure madness. Even so, we take the passion we should direct to our parents and children and instead dedicate it to our faith. That alone would not mean much, but when you see the shadow of Great Lord Shinai over our daily lives, we become fearful and absolutely loyal to him, like well-trained dogs. This slavery of the mind will still shackle us when the era of enlightenment reaches our homes. That is why I've decided to take up the will of the crow, so I neglected and begin my research. I hope that it bears fruit and mankind, not God, benefits from it, breaking free of the centuries of ignorance. This kind of reads to me like someone that has had clarity of mind or woken up. Probably not like sanity wise, but more so like woken up to their own ignorance. This was written by Kinosuke Shi's great-grandfather shortly after his role's head was passed down, when he was still in his healthy 40s. Upon reading this, Kinosuke Shi looked conflicted. The great-grandfather he thought to be a madman was actually both reasonable and intelligent. I'm not too sure about you, Titan, but this has me laughing here because it's kind of like how things happened and have happened in the past and such, how a lot of our historical figures, particularly those in the philosophy realm, were considered madmen at their time, and yet we today see their intelligence, and their group was probably able to see their intelligence too. Like, I think Socrates was considered a madman. But today we revere him. I also had something to think about it. He challenged God. That absurd endeavor might have been the reason why he'd gone mad. The diary had 3 sections. In the first one, the great-grandfather tried to pinpoint the origin of Fujiyoshi. He wanted to find the invisible chains binding him by looking at where they started and where they were going. Yeah, definitely. Now, how about if we added in all of the other shonen protagonists in there, just like have Shaggy, Scooby, and all the shonen protagonists of Luffy and Goku's era all get together and they have an eating contest. We'll see that. But yeah, we're all madmen to somebody. Let's see. Glad to hear. However, that was difficult. Trying to find documents in Fujiyoshi would have attracted the attention of the other families. You do, huh? But then again, I'm not too sure that Shaggy and Scooby have cleared out more than one restaurant, because Goku and Vegeta could definitely do that. Yeah, that would make sense there. Let's see. Back to here. Trying to find documents in Fujiyoshi would have attracted the attention of the other families, particularly the Migurama, who then obstruct his work. Our legends say that we were protected by Shinai-sama. By looking for proof claiming otherwise, we would be betraying his compassion, and that was the height of disrespect. I'm not too Oh yes, they definitely did that. You're right about that, Titan. And as I was about to say here, this is kind of interesting because it's reminding me of like the origins of modern day science here. Like, our science gets pretty old once you take a look at where things actually begin, like with the ancient Greeks and such, but when it was actually considered its own separate thing from philosophy, so by that time it went from natural philosophy, it yeah, they would be. They would definitely be too competitive. But yeah, as I was saying here, this whole thing that was just put on the screen here, it reminds me of like the beginnings of science, more so after it went from natural philosophy to actually being denoted as science of its own thing. And at that time, the churches were involved, and a lot of people were believing, but the things that we found out at the time just didn't go along with the beliefs too well. So this is kind of giving me that kind of vibe here. It was also a time when not everyone went to schools and literacy levels were really low, thus most of the records were held by the head families. However, there was no record of one of them trying to check another family's records, and that would obviously be met with opposition. Thus, he looked at the historical documents from outside Fujiyoshi. With the settlement being such a strange place, he figured that there would be many records about it made by outsiders. He was completely right. There were lots of old writings in the nearby villages and towns. Since it was wartime and the economy was dire, the paper was about to be wasted on fixing sliding. He used his own funds to acquire these precious documents. They were now organized and placed somewhere in the room, but anyway, he was able to locate Fujiyoshi's roots. It happened 600 years ago during the Muromachi period, a bit before the Sengoku. According to the documents, the place now known as Kamifujiyoshi began as a hunter settlement. So pretty much a typical beginning here if it had started as a hunter settlement. This place was a hunting ground for centuries. Game meat had only spread among the common people during the Meiji period, but the country folk had been eating it for long before that. At first, it was just a settlement of cabins for the hunters from nearby villages to rest or shelter and places to skin and prepare meat. But once the people realized how rich the area was in game, they began to colonize the place. And I am thinking right now it led to the extinction of many species, don't you, Titan? Kind of like how we practically make things extinct in Genshin for a few hours. As a result, a part of Kamifujiyoshi was born and people began living here as either farmers or hunters. The settlement had no name yet. However, these extremely old documents referred to it as Okami Village or something similar. Not Okami as in Okami-sama, though, but Okami as in wolves, the canine beasts. Interesting. Apparently this place really had wolves before. Not mountain dogs or badgers, but actual wolves. There was no secret though. The Shinai Shrine run by the Migurama had actual wolf bones in it. However, according to the documents during the settlement's development, the place was often attacked by wolves that caused major damage. They'd probably tried many times to deal with them, but the documents wrote down one very simple method. The people of the Wolf Village prepared a human sacrifice and consigned them to flame. Human sacrifice. It was a practice that had existed in Japan for a long time. During construction or whatnot, people would be killed and buried as offerings to prevent misfortune. I'd heard of human sacrifices made to prevent bridges being taken away by floods or people buried during castle fortification. It was a pretty big deal. Still, it wasn't weird to do it to prevent a beast-related problem. It did seem like a plausible story, so I wasn't surprised. Neither of us were specialists, but from what I knew, people tried to benefit from sacrifices by later on worshipping them as gods. I'd even heard that the pillar kanji used to count gods was based on the term for human sacrifice. I am still liking this little thing right here. I'm not too sure how much of you can see, Titan, because of my mug blocking a bit of a corner of it. But I'm liking how they actually don't make us try and read these kanji. They put in, like, this is what it's supposed to mean along with the kanji, and it helps me keep track of the clues, unlike what has been done in Detective Conan. Yeah, it does. Kanji does look cool, it's just hard to read. For people like you and me, at least. Anyway, following the sacrifice, the beast attack subsided and the settlement continued to grow. At this point, the upper settlement, once known as Okami Village, now Kami Fujiyoshi, was surrounded by cabins and other settlements. Through irrigation, these settlements gathered water from the Wolf Village. One of these settlements was a dangerous place. They did, I don't think I remember that, but I've seen a few of the Looney Tunes stuff. Like, I kind of remember how Daffy and Bugs Bunny got into like a fight to confuse Elmer over who to hunt, and so they're like, it's duck season, no, it's rabbit season, kind of thing. That's all I remember of the Looney Tunes. Yep. Yep, that's kind of what I remember. Yep. And it kind of also spins around sometimes. Even though by all Yep. Although by all accounts, Daffy's duckbill should have been blown off with a gunshot. Just still funny to see it happen like that, though. See, back to this. One of these settlements was a dangerous place that was often covered in mist that led people to their deaths, and for some reason the locals found it really important. Yep. Kinosuke Shii, his great-grandfather, and myself figured that it had to be Sumizu. And if they took water from Kami Fujiyoshi, it wasn't hard to imagine that the hierarchical relationship between the settlements had already existed then. In agricultural societies, the settlements that controlled the supply of water were extremely influential. After all, if they stopped the flow, the settlements below would dry out. It was even related to the Yasumizu rebellion that Kinosuke Shii told me about. I couldn't ignore this point. Though there was no mention of Yasumizu or the local superstitions yet. All that the documents said was that the Wolf Village was steadily progressing as a settlement. However, there was a mention of a fearsome beast yokai or god that ate people. Though it was only mentioned in the oldest documents, then never heard from again. So was it an abandoned myth? That's I'm curious about. What about you, Titan? If this beast eating humans is part of the mythological aspect of this culture that we're studying.
Kami. 力なき神。それだけじゃ、わからないんですよ。伝承には、あなたのような存在は、
Let's see. A god, a powerless god, that's not enough. The legends don't say anything about.
待て、よ、
Wait,
無事な、
the badger.
不快な呼び名、なのでしょうか。
Do you hate that name?
別に正しいことじゃ。
Not at all. It is not wrong in the least.
こうして信頼明神の印をつけて畜生どもの頭目として振る舞っておる我にこそ
It is a fitting name for someone wearing the marks of Great Lord Shinai and acting as leader of these mutts.
どうせなら我らの下ってみられない
So why not try joining me?
有利司法のケチな領地じゃが退屈はさせませぬぞ
My land may be small, but I will make sure you are not bored. It had to be God. She said she was defeated by Great Lord Shinai, but never mentioned when it happened.
神の武士は示す編。実際に給仕は神だし、つまりこれは狼。
To the left side of the kanji for God, there's a radical for show, and it's even more obvious in its old form. This means that the result is Okami, great God. I was close to the truth. But for now, back to the history. Fujiyoshi had started out as your typical hunting farming settlement. Things changed after about a century when life in the settlement had stabilized. By this point, the records left by the outsiders started noting that there was a strange village in the mountains. The sources had started to become many and varied, too. I was curious about how the great-grandfather got documents from Kyoto and Tohoku. But anyway, these reports were records written by travelers who'd stopped here. Many of them were interested in the local customs. One was their hate for mountain fires. It was so bad that outsiders weren't allowed to make any flames, and they themselves had a special watering hole where they did it. One was their worship of a humanoid wolf statue. They asked it for good fortune in the hunt and a peaceful life in the mountains. One was the special misty place where travelers were summoned and welcomed by sensual women. Some rumors mentioned seemed hardly believable, but some of them were still alive, and I was surprised to know how old they were. What bothered me was the fact that there were many records of the invitations to the misty place, but nothing about getting killed there. In fact, most of them mentioned eating good meat and veggies and drinking good sake while having fun with beautiful girls. It was safe to assume that the feast of the Yomi Purge hadn't existed back then. It was closer to the traditional treatment of guests as described by Rikako-san.
ちなみに、マロードっていうのは何か来訪者をもてなす文化みたいなものがあるのですか
By the way, you seem pretty hung up on guests. Is there some sort of local culture related to that?
はい。そもそも、かつての藤吉は、
安全の祈願のため
Yes, I hear
神
that.
霊大社を訪れる人で賑わったと聞きます。
Yes, I hear that Fujiyoshi was once full of visitors who came to the Shinai Shrine to pray for good hunting.
遠方の狩人を村人はマロードと呼び
Hunters from the
も
outside.
てなしたと言います。
Yep. We enter the light. Now, what's heaven gonna be like, folks? 'Cause I sure hope it's not Celestia. Let's see. Others from Yep. You could definitely say that. Let's see. Hunters from the outside were considered honored guests and treated kindly around here. It's probably taking us down below because now it's just a light there. That's actually a pretty good idea and would be kind of heaven that I'd want to go to. Because right now, a lot of people that talk about heaven and that, and when you get their idea of what heaven is like, it just doesn't appeal to me as much as what Socrates claims about the two possibilities of what happens after death. His two possibilities are much better than what religions say, but if heaven is just endless pizza, then sign me up. Let's see. However, there was one thing she seemed to be wrong about. The strange village in the records was a completely different place than the one built around the Shinai Shrine she spoke of. In fact, there wasn't a single mention of Shinai at this point. The general area here was marked as Kachihara. Would things change if we continued further? That is kind of a funny thing to think of. Heaven being wall-to-wall pizza, hell being wall-to-wall non-pizza stuff, but at the same time, some people don't like pizza as much as we do. But in any case, I'd probably say that neither one would be too bad if it were that kind of thing. Let's see. Anyways, we kept reading. Such records continued for 2 or 3 decades, but there was a period that wasn't recorded at all. Apparently, the travelers who'd made their way... That's true. A lot of things burnt is too crispy, so who knows, maybe the pizza is better after all. Let's see. Apparently the travelers who made their way to the area started being chased out and that was it. Or maybe the area became like Poland because I think I remember mention that Poland like had a disappearance from the history books for like 5 centuries or something, and then all of a sudden it showed up again only to be conquered. I haven't really looked into that too much. I'm pretty sure historians know what happened to Poland in those times where it wasn't on the map. But this is giving me those kind of vibes that disappeared, kind of like Poland. And having the travelers chased out makes sense of it being like that rather than conquest or economic collapse. Even though economic collapse could be. Yep. Though I think I'd prefer Klee to be in the room of endless pizza. She might not enjoy hell too much unless she just blew everything up. But yeah, could definitely be fun with that kind of group. This nice. You know, after all, with Hades being Hades, we can't deliver him a dirt nap because where would he go? Hades is the ruler of the underworld. And the underworld is where dead people go, so he can't technically die. So what better way to mess with him? Let's see. The settlement suddenly became isolated. Without any documents from the village itself, it was hard to know exactly what happened during this time. But according to the Nisato documents, this time period was how far they could trace their lineage back. After that, the settlement showed up in records another century later. Oh my. It really does sound like Poland, except it only disappeared for a century. It was the middle of the Edo period, peaceful times, and the amount of records appeared to have exploded, along with the name Shinai. There's a hidden mountain where people worship a wolf-faced god and prosper because of it. It is said that the hunters who do not pay their respects to him get lost or injured in the mountains. It is a spiritual place that a mountain ascetic should visit at least once. Their prayers seem to heal all. There are oracles who can predict the future with great accuracy. If the oracles can predict the future with great accuracy, then would they be able to predict us bringing our teams from Teyvat into their village, Titan? Because our teams from Genshin would cause them great chaos. The non-believers who step on the mountain are in for a terrible fate. The name of the god they worship is Shinai. And the village is called Fushiyoshi.
そういうことだったのか。
So that's it. Yeah. Yeah. And the Shogun would probably really fit with things since this is Japan we're talking about. Let's see. I lurched forward and shouted with excitement.
確かに、かつてこの村は不死吉と呼ぶのが正しかったと聞くが、何がそういうことなのか。
Yeah. Of course, that also makes me wonder if they can even stand a chance against the visionary of the five sinners. Like, we don't know too much about Dainsleif's brother from Genshin other than him being the part of the five sinners, but he was kind of nicknamed the visionary, I believe, and he should have been able to see more than Mona and the others did. So yeah, wonder if the visionary would put them to shame. I see. I'll be sure to. I plan to get to it once I'm done with this VN like I told you before. But right now, this is kind of interesting to me just because I'm kind of wrapped up in the mystery. Oh. Let's see. True, I did hear that this village was once called Fushiyoshi. But what's so important about that? What's so important about it, Inosuke? We've got to remember what Mamiya told us. But I'm sure Mamiya will go over it again at some point, since we have to go through a bunch of these loops to get the final keys.
新内さんと同じ仕掛けですよ。新内という字をばらして組み替えると狼になる。
Let's see. It's the same trick with the name Shinai-san. When you take apart the kanji for Shinai into... And that's... Okay. I kind of wish that they gave us the translations instead of kanji here. Like, all we're getting here is the Shinai kanji, and then they give is only 3 straight ones without a translation here. I wish that they put those translations in like the last time earlier that they did. Let's see, so Medic here, you can rearrange them into Okami, Great God, which is also phonetically identical to Wolf, Okami.
お、本当だ。それと同じだと。
That's a nice thing to know. So that has me kind of excited to get on with the story in Genshin for sure, if we're getting those kinds of details. Oh, you're right. Hey, wait, then you mean this is the same?
伏吉。伏せの字は人弁に犬。
look at the name Fushiyoshi. The first kanji contains the radical for dog.
犬は部首としては剣部です。これには獣編も含まれる。
Dog covers the animal radical. That's used on the left of the kanji. Alright. But yeah, what you've given me was interesting enough, so that's fine.
それに量を並べるんです。
Let's see. Keeping that in mind, you line that up with the Yoshi of Fushiyoshi to get Fushiyoshi. If you broke apart the first kanji, you'd get person, dog, and good. Then by combining the latter two kanji into one and putting the whole thing together again, you got Hito Okami, or werewolf. Kind of interesting that Hito Okami is put into werewolf because thanks to Mushoku Tensei, or Jobless Reincarnation, Hito refers to man a lot. Like, I don't know all the nuances to that of the Japanese language and that, but that's generally what it's translated to in Mushoku Tensei, where Hitogami is present. But it's kind of interesting and makes sense that it is translated here as werewolf.
人狼人狼
Werewolf, Hito Okami.
それは狼様のことか、それとも神来明神のことか。
Does that refer to... Yep. But if there are werewolves, then how well would Razor get along with them, because he was raised by wolves, and werewolves are just another variant of wool. They're just humans that turn into wolves and such. Let's see. Does that refer to the Okami-sama or to Great Lord Shinai?
その2つは基本的には同じものです。ある神様の穏やかな層が神内明神で、不運無尊が狼様という程度のもの。
Oh man. Yeah, that's so like what they'd react. Let's see. The two of them are essentially the same. One takes the form of the peaceful god Great Lord Shinai, while the other takes the form of the resentful Okami-sama.
3人組の人狼という形があって、やっていることが違うだけ。同一視する方が自然ですよ。
They both take the shape of 3 werewolves, but do different things. I really can't blame people for seeing them as the same.
そもそも人狼、人狼を信仰する文脈自体はこの100年前からすでに文献に出ていたわけです。
Yep. And interestingly enough, I don't think you're around for the other streams, but we do at one time see 3 wolf eyes in mist. Probably, yep. We don't know for sure. All that we know is that there are 3 gods. And so, what they're probably just referring to as the initial 3 gods, and the other eyes are probably their servants. But yeah, it is kind of scary to think about it. 6 werewolves. Let's see. Let's not forget that we have documents saying that there was a culture here that worshipped werewolves at least a century ago. Yep, we do. But then again, wouldn't Razor befriend the werewolves? Like, he might be more loyal to his clan, so he's not gonna be that way. Yeah. How about we get Razor, Venti, Andreas or whatever his name is that we fight there in Mondstadt, and then the Golden Wolf Lord from Inazuma to come and take care of things. That would actually be pretty funny. Let's see.
もともと狼による獣害があって、人柱があって、人狼の原始
Yeah, that is true.
長い時を経て、神内様となった。
But of course, I don't think I've ever fought the Golden Wolf Lord except for maybe that time in Natlan that we had to fight him. I do have the waypoint for the Golden Wolf Lord, though. Oh, nice. I don't know how my characters would do against him. I just know that my Skirk team can kill Mulani's boss before it ever ascends into the air. So who knows, they might be able to do the same to the Golden Wolf Lord. I see. So it's kind of like the geohypostasis, huh? But then again, you don't really need the geo element to get the hypostasis. I see. Let's see here. They probably had some beast attacks, started holding human sacrifices. That's true. But then again, when I just said that, like, I then remembered, oh wait, you just need a Claymore person, it doesn't have to be Geo. Let's see here. They probably had yeah. Let's see. They probably had some beast attacks, started holding human sacrifices, and built a primitive faith around werewolves. And as time passed, that evolved into Shinai-sama.
狼様はこのどこかの段階で生まれた信仰対象なのでしょう。そして当初、彼らはそれらが同じものだと自覚していた。
Yeah, that makes sense. I remember using Noel a lot for the geohypostasis, but I've also used Chongyun, which is why I went, oh wait, it's more so Claymore that's recommended for geohypostasis than the geo element itself. Yeah, I used to use them a lot. Like, back then I was using variations of kind of the starter team, and then when I was trying to get to world level 9, that's when I started looking into teams that work well with characters. So pretty much I wasn't quite that wise with my stuff back then in Genshin. Let's see. Okami-sama is a divinity born during one of those stages, and to the people of that era, they were the same thing.
藤吉村、いや、伏吉村の人間たちは、自分たちの信仰の特異性を重々承知して、その上で自分たちの村の名にそれを隠した。
That makes sense. So you pretty much just choose whoever, huh? But people have recommended Wuwa to me, like, other than the fact that it just didn't strike my fancy because of how similar it is to Genshin. It also probably takes a lot. Yeah, but thanks to that, you find some interesting team setups that I remember you telling me about a few times. Yep. Let's see here. The villagers of Fushioshi were fully aware of their religion's peculiarities and even hid in their own village's name. Yeah, you pretty much are. Though, of course, I've heard that they kind of retired Ash, so one day there won't be a lot of people that get that joke. Yeah. Choose a team instead of choosing an individual Pokemon. Let's see here. The villagers of Fushioshi were fully aware of their religion's peculiarities and even hid that in their own village's name.
隠したのだろうね。きっとその考察も先にあるはずだが。
Why did they hide it in the first place? I'm sure we'll find more hints up ahead.
ですね。進みましょう。
You're right, let's move on. I say we forget moving on and start beating the information out of people. Oh, nice. Yeah. No, I usually don't get very far in Spiral Abyss myself these days. Like, I get to 11-3 at the most. Scratch their head and go, are we in Oblivion yet? Ah, nice. Me, I think I've only hit 12 once. Like, I haven't really done floor 12 all that much because I can kind of get 9 stars in floors 9 and 10 easily, and then 11 is where I kind of choke up a bit. Let's see. The great-grandfathers seem to have noticed these hidden words too. The reports that followed generally described Fushioshi as it was. I haven't done that in a while. Like, I've only done it once, and it was alright. But I don't really see much use to it. Like, it's just another thing to use resin in, and I don't really get the point other than maybe the artifacts, but I don't really see it as any different than doing the artifact domains themselves. Let's see. Though their strange practices were now considered rituals, and it seemed to prosper as a cult village. It was a mountain village far from the rest of civilization, yet it prospered through the money left behind by guests who made the trip regardless. There were now 2 types of guests here. The ones who visited the place to hunt, and the ones that came for religious reasons. The writings from the later dates included lots of those left by monks who'd come here to study the culture. It is, huh? Well, I'm not too surprised, because Stygian is just pretty much a boss rush, whereas the theater isn't so much a boss rush as it is just a ton of fights, and then you get 1 or more bosses depending on your difficulty level selection is what I guess out of that. I see. I pretty much just do theater and Spiral Abyss since it gives primos. Of course, I haven't streamed my Abyss runs. Yeah. But yeah, I know the theater gives other things, but I haven't done anything above easy on it. Because I just do it to get the primos. Let's see here. All of them were surprised by the strange faith and legends of Fushioshi and praised the strength of their belief. Some wrote about the faith in detail. Yep. Though, of course, you get primos of, all the acts, don't you? At least that's what I thought I saw in the reward listing when you go to claim the rewards from theater. Let's see. Let's see here. Act 6, huh? So you didn't get to Act 8 because the BP rewards want you to get to Act 8. But Act 6 is pretty good. That's a lot farther than I usually go. see. Many of them clearly named the Forehead families in the legend about the Five Guardians. You need level 90 characters for that, huh? Because I thought the threshold was you needed the characters to be level 70, but I guess it goes up, huh? Let's see. The hunters, however, didn't leave many writings. Or rather, it wasn't even their writings. Besides, a couple reports by local lords of someone hunting down large beasts on Mount Chennai. I see. But it kind of makes sense that they'd ask for more higher levels the higher the difficulty goes. Though it still does make me wish that they didn't gatekeep level 100 like they do. Let's see. There were also those that simply mentioned men who went hunting in Fushioshi and never returned. One of them clearly stated, "Do not hunt in Fushioshi in the summer. The people of Fushioshi speak of the curse of Yasumizu."
なるほど。
And
100年の沈黙の間に
I still think it would be better if they gave us the stuff we needed for level 100 for any duplicate of a E6 character that we've got. Don't limit it to just C6 5 stars. Like heck, you can make it so that, hey, if you only get it from C6 4 star, is you can only use the stuff on 4 stars. I think either you or Big D mentioned that possibility, and I agree that seems like a lot better of a proposition, if not just give it to us regardless of if it's a dupe of a C6 4 star or 5 star. Let's see here. I see. Fushioshi has changed a lot over the century.
現在残る地名や用語、そして物語の類は全部、この時代に創作されたと考えるべきでしょう。
Yes, it's fair to assume that all the local names and stories were created during this time.
スミスの意味合いも変わっている。ここを訪れるのは漁師だけ。そして、彼らの者もいる。
Yasumizu seems to be leaving a different impression too. The hunters who visit this place don't come back. That must mean that
読み意味の宴が始まったのかもしれません。
the Feast of the Yomi Purge had begun. The history continued. After a while of prosperity due to its Shinai cult, Fushioshi began to decorate Kameiji. The new government centralized power, rural areas began to be developed, and the religious reforms established Shinto as the state religion. The anti-Buddhist movement of that era planned a complete separation of Shinto and Buddhism, destroying many Buddhist temples, customs, and cultural assets, dealing another blow to the village and its faith. This could easily be found in the Nasato records, but it was admitted here that the Uematsu were particularly damaging for them. Well, there was no denying that the Uematsu culture seemed Buddhist in nature, and the prostitution part must have made them targets of harsh prejudice. The Shinai faith, which had many strange rituals, had to either cease or discard them. No, had to either cease and discard them or turn them into something more culturally acceptable. However, they did keep a few of them. Before moving on to the next chapter, we put together the region names of Fushioshi, which great-grandfather rediscovered from the archives. According to him, Fushioshi had several districts, each one under the jurisdiction of the village heads. The Migurama had Fushiki, where the Shinai shrine was built. The Higuchi had Hoshizuki, where people gathered. The Nasato had Tomeguchi, the medical plant field right beside Kagegawa. And the last, the Uematsu, were given the Hacho, the lodging area. According to Kiyanosuke-shi, these regions remained in Kami Fujiyoshi to this day. In fact, the names of these regions had existed from that era when the name Fushioshi began to spread to the outside, as was the designation Kami Fushioshi. On the other hand, places aside from Kami Fushioshi had already been clearly identified and named, such as Yasumizu.
安水でなく、安水。
Not Yasumizu, spelled with the kanji for rest and water, but rather rest and lord. Rest and lord, huh?
ここへ来て、先々先代も我々と同じ結論に至ったのだな。
I see my great-grandfather reached the same conclusion as us then.
不識は、櫛。つまり、髪の毛を。
If you swap the kanji for fushiki around and combine them into one, you get comb for hair.
星月は、肝。肝臓か。
With Hozuki, you do the same trick, then combine them to get liver. Huh?
影川の旧表記。影。骨。
Kakekawa was originally written as, I don't know that. Put the first kanji on top and the ladder, on top of the ladder, and you get bone.
留め口は、わかりやすいな。足。
Tomeguchi is a no-brainer. Put Gucci on top of Tome, and you get foot.
そして八丁は、爪。
And with Hacho, you place the second kanji between the first to get claw.
上藤吉の地名は、すべて人間の身体に基づいた分割をされている。
So the region names of Kami Fujiyoshi were divided up and based on body
そ
parts.
して、安水は、人、木、主に分割して組み合わせれば、
And then we get to the real spelling of Yasumizu. Break the first kanji down and you're left with person, tree, and lord. Combine the latter two into one kanji, then put the full word together and you get
人柱。
human sacrifice. Ooh. The background is ominous here, huh, Titan? Along with this music in the background. His great-grandfathers seem to have no clue about the purpose of the names. However, he did guess that the oldest one was either Fushioshi or Yasumizu, while the other names were new. He concluded that the link between those names and the words werewolf and human sacrifice was related. There was another thing here. He guessed that Kami Fushioshi was named after body parts to represent a single human as a way of responding to or opposing Yasumizu. Another guess was that by burying the sediment, oh, you did, huh? I hope they end up being good. I'm not too sure that I'm gonna get the DX versions of them because I've already paid for all 3 games. If I can't download them anymore when I finally replace my PS5's hard drive, then I might get the DX versions. But right now, I'm more interested in getting Trails at this point, more so the localization of the next game, which should be called Trails True Horizon. Ah, that makes sense. I see. That makes sense. I played the trilogy on PS5, and at that time I didn't have the stuff to stream like I do now. Like, I had my PS5 and I could stream from that, but not as well as I do right now. Yeah. I can definitely see that. I definitely enjoyed my time with the Ryza trilogy, and I also liked the Mysterious trilogy. I am kind of... well, hopefully you enjoy Yumiya. I've had issues with Yumiya. It just felt like they had made too many bad decisions. Like, it's nice the changes that they made. It feels more like Genshin in a way than Ryza did. But at the same time, they just made some dumb decisions. Well, they're your choices, and I don't see a problem with it. It's just more so not my cup of tea that Yumiya was. Yeah, the alchemy system in Yumiya seemed more like it was in Atelier Marie. I've only played the remake, but essentially it's supposed to be the same gameplay, and Yumiya felt like Marie in that regard. But it wasn't like truly random in whether or not you'd fell like it was with Marie. But my problem was that the puzzles were too difficult in Yumiya. It wasn't like, I can't solve this, I need a guide or whatever. It was more so, are you kidding me, devs? Why is the camera like this? And I know I need to hit this thing, but you're not letting me see my lineup of sight easily to be able to hit it. It's like that kind of annoyance. And if you've seen Ark's streams of it, I'm sure you would have been able to notice what I'm talking about. Let's see here. another guess was that by burying this element in the name, instead of burying people in the ground, they'd avoided killing their own. But yeah, at this point, I'm kind of done with Atelier. I might check out the earlier entries. I don't know about that, but definitely anything after Ryza I don't want to touch. Let's see. Honestly, it seemed to me like we didn't have enough to understand the true intention behind this. Though the fact they hid the word human sacrifice in Yasumizu was pretty shady. You could assume that it was named that because it was a human sacrifice meant to help the area, including Kami Fushioshi prosper. Or perhaps it was related to the human sacrifice from the origin of the village. Regardless, there were definitely ulterior motives behind the names, as one knew Yasumizu's future. As one who knew Yasumizu's future, I was certain of that. Fushioshi and Yasumizu had become Fujiyoshi and Yasumizu during the Meiji period and became part of a single area. The great-grandfather concluded that the naming was based on local conventions and that it was meant to hide the village's past. He had nowhere to continue from here, and his writing in his diary the diary ended. The next section was started out by Kinosuke Shi's great-grandfather, but after his writing grew worse and worse and finally stopped, his son took over. According to Kinosuke Shi, his great-grandfather had gotten a mental illness and began acting eccentric. He'd seen it with his own eyes. The final reasonable bits of writing left behind by him cursed his deteriorating mind and hoped that his descendants would take over his research. His wish was fulfilled when Kinosuke Shi's grandfather found this room and took over. This section was primarily made to give detailed descriptions to the outdated rites and customs of Fushioshi. Naturally, the lack of historical accounts was a hindrance. However, the documents owned by the Nasato family and the knowledge he gained as the head made it possible to do it. He was also married to someone with ties to the Migurama, so he also gained access to some Migurama records. Having gathered info from various sources, he reached some reliable conclusions. Though his efforts to gather information had made him the target of the other head families, his mind also seemed to deteriorate during his twilight years. The final bits of writing in the diary seemed to scream his fear of death. He died on May 1st, 15 years ago. Ooh. The text here made it evident that he died in the Feast of the Omi Purge. Wow. Interesting. As the hand of the supernatural looms over us and takes our lives, I realize that I am losing control of my mind. Now that I've seen the might of the god I was to venerate, what duty do I have to continue the previous head's research into our homeland of Fushioshi? I will probably be hanged tomorrow, and in all honesty, it seems like a favorable outcome at this point. What if the irresistible urge to sleep faded and I opened my eyes to see the wolf-faced god? I would be unable to bear the fear. Hey, Justice, how are you doing? The wolfsbane I shall use to end my life lies in my hand. And that was it. Kinosuke Shi's voice was shaking. From what he said, his grandfather was an intelligent gentleman that he knew personally and respected immensely. Anyway, the text here could be summed up as thus. Fushioshi had several strange rites and customs. When combined with the ones unique to specific head families, the number grew exponentially. It revealed all the details about these things and even had info we really didn't care about. Cheesecake, huh? I had someone else here earlier that you wouldn't be able to interact with that said chocolate cake. They're probably still watching this stream here, but cheesecake and chocolate cake both sound good. Let's see. Let's bring this up. And I'm glad you're doing okay, Justice. Yep. It is definitely delicious. But I'm glad you're both here, Justice and Titan. You guys might not be able to see each other's stuff, but I'm able to keep track of both of you. So don't you worry. You do want cheesecake, huh? Cheesecake actually sounds good to me too right now. So much for what I said earlier about not being much of a dessert person, but it's just more so if I'm in the mood or not at that point. I'm doing good, Justice, just relaxing here. Yesterday I got a comment suggesting an interesting game to check out because they saw me go through the Battle of Wits portion of this VN and was like, hey, if you like this Battle of Wits stuff, hey, you should check out this VN. And I did a bit of searching on it. I need to do a bit more in terms of what platforms it's on, but it did seem kind of intriguing a bit, especially with what I could see of the Steam screenshots. I'm just not confident that I'd be able to stream it because that would mean I'd have to do more testing just to get the Steam stuff working, and I don't think I have enough space to just get another computer so that I can use my current setup to deal with that issue and not have to worry about it. Let's see here. It revealed all the details about these things and even had info we really didn't care about right now. Oh, and as for your cheesecake answer, Justice, when I first read that question that you answered with it, I answered apple pie. That's kind of what I'd go for the most a lot of the time, but sometimes it's just up to whether I want dessert or not. Let's see. The content about the Uematsu was particularly harsh, even though it was noted that not everything was here. Info about the Migurama, however, was extremely limited. However, it was said that horrible screams could be heard from their storehouse.
あの日、
That day,
私はいたずら心で三の蔵の地下の扉を開けた。
I'm glad you like apple pie too. But yeah, cheesecake isn't bad either, so can we have a few things in common there? Ooh, pumpkin pie, huh? Titan, you'd please somebody else that would possibly join us today if they do. I don't know if they'll come, but I'm just glad that the two of you are here to keep me company. Let's see. I playfully opened the iron door to the basement of the third lookout.
決して入っちゃいけないと言われた。このお印が刻まれた鉄の扉を。
I was told never to go there, and the door had that symbol on it.
そして。
And it was a morbidly interesting read, but there was only one thing that mattered to us. It was the custom of lynching in Yasumizu. It was basically describing the Feast of the Yomi Purge. Yokami-sama would return from Yomi to get revenge for being killed. The story was the same. There were two notable points here. One was that it had apparently begun about 500 years ago, after the village closed itself off from the world. Ah, so that's probably how it became like Poland. And the other was that Kami Fushioshi was mostly uninvolved in the feasts of that era. Kinosuke Shi's grandfather examined the feast's origin from various angles. He investigated the stones in the Hanging Pines graveyard, looked at the records of Kami Fushiyoshi's mace, and concluded that Kami Fushioshi were making the graves. And according to the Mason records, the Okiba were placed in Yasumizu at this time too. 500 years of history was enough to make it a historic landmark, but they were no megaliths from millennia BC EE. They were simply put there to help turn the village into a great Lord Shinai worshipping holy ground. The words left behind by the elders of Kami Fujiyoshi and Yasumizu gave us even more info. There was the legend that in a time when samurai still existed, Yomobito poured out of Yasumizu and attacked Kami Fujiyoshi. That coincided with the rebellion Kinosuke Shi had mentioned, the reason why the head families oppressed Yasumizu. Looking at both the documents and word of mouth, the rebellion had happened 5 centuries ago, shortly before the village became isolated. In Yasumizu, Yomobito were said to be scary creatures completely covered in blood water. You can find the word blood water by playing with the kanji in the name Saranaga. Bloodwater Rapids. The stream was considered corrupt even half a millennia ago. Was that millennia or millennium? Well, millennium ago, okay. Anyway, though the legend was warped by superstition, there was no denying that Kami Fujiyoshi was attacked by people covered in Saranaga mud. The grandfather concluded, without a doubt, that this incident was what made Kami Fujiyoshi people so afraid of Yasumizu. This rebellion was the very cause of the decades of isolation, the creation of the Shinai faith, and the start of the Feast of the Yomi Purge. As for what that meant, It was all planned for the purpose of holding the already discriminated Yasumizu down and preventing further rebellion. So they are definitely being oppressed here. The grandfather thought that Yasumizu was purposely created to be discriminated against. It was a bad, dangerous place to live in. The reason why it wasn't abandoned wasn't mentioned here, but anyway, people continued calling it home. In governing, intentionally creating a lower class and treating them poorly satisfied the upper class and thus made their governance easier. It was something you saw all over the world. Even in Japan, there was complicated historical discrimination that left its mark even on the current era. Thus, the presence of a settlement meant to be looked down upon was good for the leaders of that era. However, they didn't want any more rebellions, so how could they stop it? One way was to make them fight amongst themselves. Another was to make them so superstitious they wouldn't even think of rebelling. Basically, they had to make them believe the lie that there were wolves among them who were killing people, causing them to kill each other. Oh my, this sounds like the monkey experiment. Do you know the experiment I'm talking about, Titan? The one where the monkeys climb up and then they're punished for climbing, and eventually they start punishing each other for no reason at all, even when you replace one or more of them. Because that's what it sounds like that they're doing here. By doing that, they would sap any strength Yasumizu needed to rebel. They also prepared a background story to make them believe that the anomaly was actually real. The grandfather guessed that this was the true purpose of the 5-century-old religion. His sources for that were the documents gathered by his predecessor, which claimed that the people from the local temples and shrines were called into the village. He assumed that the incomplete or intentionally destroyed records were those regarding the scholars they summoned to help create the religion. That seemed absurd at first, but after thinking about it was entirely reasonable. Why does that keep doing that? Alright, let's see. The settlement they'd looked down upon had bared their fangs at them. So what did they do? Call the smart people for help. That was natural. And so those scholars teamed up, created a new religion, and made the settlement fight itself. And if they'd given the head families roles in their legends to ensure proper control, man, it sounded messed up, but it didn't seem impossible.
逆だよ。あれは上藤吉の者が読み人かもしれない安水の者と目を合わさずに済ませるためにつけさせたものだ。
It's the other way around. It's so that the people of Kami Fujiyoshi wouldn't have to look into the eyes of the people of Yasumizu who may or may not be Yomobito. They wanted to avoid eye contact, not only because they thought they were corrupted, but also because they were afraid. Kami Fujiyoshi was afraid of Yasumizu. It was a possibility I wouldn't have considered before, but it also seemed likely. It'd be pretty scary if the people they looked down upon finally let their grudge take over and become fearful marauders, ready to enact their revenge. And because they were aware of how badly they treated the settlement, the guilt grew even larger, and they started controlling and discriminating against them even further. When you looked at it that way, they'd made a whole religion just to protect themselves. And boy, was that insane. Now, with the feast's origin revealed, that was that about the head families not being involved in it so much. No, was that it's about the head families not being involved in it so much? Apparently, the first feasts were a lot simpler than the current one. There was the purification, sheltering, dreaming, and the limit of one per day, but there was no actual punishment for breaking these laws. They'd probably set it up to prevent indiscriminate massacres. Also, there was no wolf selection, and there were no guardians. Okay, I'll probably check on that stuff later. Let's see. The heads of Fushioshi leaders of that time only circulated the Yasumizu legend that the wolves came back. By spreading the local legend along with a lie, they motivated the people to kill each other whenever the mists appeared. It was successful, and the people started killing suspected wolves every time the mist showed up. In response to that, those who spread the suspicions were brutalized at night. This weakened Yasumizu, left to the place a breeding ground for future problems and too weak to rebel.
待て、そんなバカな、おかしいだろ。そんなことで殺し合いが起きるはずがない。
Wait, that doesn't make sense. Why would they kill each other just because of that?
実際の脅威がないのに、殺し合いが起きるというのか。
How can there be murders without any real threat?
昔は今とは違います。迷信が殺し合いに発展してもおかしくない。
The past isn't the present. There were times when superstition could make people murder one another.
先々代さんは、初めから死刑という言葉を使ってます。僕はこれが重要だと思う。
Your grandfather uses the word lynch right from the start. I think that's
おそ
important.
らく、読み意味の宴は、安水の住人たちにとって役立つものだったんです。
I think that the Feast of the Yomi Purge was actually useful to the people of Yasumizu
どう
too.
いうことだ。
What do you mean? What he means is like the exiles in Athens, at least that I've heard about. I would have to ask my historian friends about that, but essentially how it goes is you're given a choice to either die or you're left in exile. And that's kind of what happened to Socrates. Is that he chose to unalive himself instead of going into exile. Or that's how the story goes. We don't know how Socrates died or what the reason was. We only have that kind of info because of Plato. Alright. So what do you mean?
先に進みましょう。
Let's keep reading. Sure enough, the grandfather seemed to believe that to the people of Yasumizu, the feast made the killings into a just cause. According to this, the feast wasn't considered a paranormal event, not even by the Yasumizu people themselves. It was just a justification for lynching. The hand of the law didn't reach this backwards village, and Yasumizu was even more isolated, a settlement for the ostracized. Okay, so yeah, they're just getting rid of whoever they don't like. Of course, there had to be conflicts and wrongings, and the social system to solve them was limited. Thus, there was demand for solutions beyond the law, and the feast fit the bill perfectly. When the mists came, they could easily get rid of people they didn't like. However, that came with the risk of being targeted by their friends and family. Ah, so a lot like the Salem witch trials, huh? This continuous cycle of lynchings and revenge eventually destroys the minority and leaves the majority wounded. The feast ends and law returns to Yasumizu. It seemed like the ostracism they'd done in ancient Greece. Anyone who was against the law of the village had their names written on pottery and voted to be exiled, a backwards but effective way to keep order. Though while the punishment there was exile, the feast came with a death penalty. It is clearly unjust, but they found it better than nothing. By having these occasional unlawful disputes, they actually prevented the settlement as a whole from crumbling. Those who participated in the lynchings had their guilt lessened by considering the legends and myths. Superstition had real-world effects. By telling people that they'd be hanged if they were bad, the renegades among them would be silenced. So yeah, the Feast of the Omi Purge had its perks for both Kami Fushioshi and Yasumizu. Okay, good. Also, apparently it was a long-running tradition for Kami Fushioshi to do certain things immediately before the mists came. They summoned the children of Yasumizu to Kami Fushioshi and called the women to help them with food. There was no end to these there was no end to these records. It was much like the mountain festival. The carrot for the stick, they constantly provided the settlement. But it was also a form of population control. They didn't want Yasumizu to be completely depopulated, so they protected the children. This tradition was alive to this day. Even 8 years ago, Tai-san, Kaori-san, and the children had been saved from the feast when they were called. So while it had its roots in superstition, the Feast of the Omi Purge became a kind of social tool.
なるほど。統制されたリンチ。
I see. Controlled.
合議による死刑制度と言っていいだろう。
I see. Controlled lynching, or perhaps capital punishment by popular vote.
我々、上藤吉の人間に都合のいい形で、安水の中で完結する。
It's only useful to us Kami Fujiyoshi people, and it doesn't spread outside of Yasumizu.
これではムロたちが言うように、完全に長者は悪者ではないか。
Muro and the youths are right. The village heads are the bad guys here. Well, I agree with you here, Kiyonosuke. They could be considered the bad guys with all this information that you're being presented, but at the same time, I doubt all the village heads would be in on this kind of opinion-wise. They'd be more in on it, probably silence-wise or whatever, since the Migurama are supposed to be the most powerful and they could silence everyone.
それはどうでしょう。当時の統治者たちは、当時なりの良識感覚で、良い統治を目指しただけかもしれない。
I'm not sure about that. The leaders from that era might have intended this to be a kindness meant to ensure stability.
問題は、現代に至るまでその統治が続いてしまっていることですが。
The problem is that it continues to this day.
そうだ。今の安水なら、こんなことが起きるはずがないのだ。
Yes, this is something that shouldn't be happening in Yasumizu today.
そう書いてありますか？
Is that what it says?
戦中戦後に宴は3度あったとされているな。
It says that there were 3 feasts during and after the war. The feast meant to manage society had ended with the one that began at the start of World War II. When Kinosuke Shi's grandfather wrote this, he called it the previous feast. The ones who survived it said that an actual wolf had appeared. Also, rules like sheltering, which had been ignored until then, now came with a supernatural punishment. The legend had gone from mere story to reality. The grandfather himself had witnessed some paranormal things too. There was a pile of dog corpses that seemed to have appeared out of nowhere. The thorough, violent deaths given to the rule breakers. The wolves who could come in through locked doors and brutalize the ones inside. And finally, the unity between the wolves, hell-bent on killing the humans even if it meant their own death. That was the feast I knew. The next text was written by the previous head, Kinosuke-shi's father, and he'd observed the third feast of the recent times. It was the one that happened 8 years ago, and its survivors mentioned impossible paranormal events that actually happened. It was the exact same. The feast had been supernatural 3 times in a row. And this was the 4th one. That meant that something had drastically changed with the feast that happened during the war. The reason for that wasn't given here.
大丈夫ですか？ショックだとは思います。少し休みますか？
Are you okay? It must be shocking. Should we take a break?
いや、いい。一気に読んでしまおう。次は。
No,
我
I'm
が父
fine.
が主にまとめた記述だな。
No, I'm fine. Let's keep reading. Next is the text left by my father. Like Kinosuke-shi said, the final section of the diary was written by the previous head of the Nasato family. He'd inherited the will of his predecessors and tried solving this mystery. Though unlike them, he seemed to prioritize documents that had been released to the public. For one, there were cutouts of articles. He'd taken various clippings from newspapers and magazines to create an extremely large scrapbook. There were bits from local newspapers, national ones, and both general and specialized magazines of varied renown. Basically, he'd gathered all the info regarding Fujiyoshi, no matter how minor. Of course, we didn't have the time to look through all of them, so we relied on the index in the diary. We found out that this small village had a number of unexpectedly major events happen in it. They were so big that they actually made it to national newspapers. Some of the oldest and more notable ones were the articles about the serial murders here that happened over 60 years ago. Oh, serial murders, huh? There were a number of articles with titles like 20 deadly break-ins in Fujiyoshi and murders in 20 houses in Mountain Village. And I found that number to be significant. Though the number of places that had been attacked was 20, the number of casualties was 17. 8 more were injured. Regardless, it was definitely big enough to make a mark on Japanese history. This event was well covered for something that happened on the eve of World War II, and it ended with the culprit being sent to Tokyo and quickly executed. The incident was reported for 2 years, from when it came to light right up to the capital punishment. It could be summed up like this. On December 27th, 1940, in Fujiyoshi Village, Kami Fujiyoshi Hochizuki, a man covered in mud, invaded a private dwelling. He quickly used the kitchen knife he had to attack 2 of the people inside, destroyed property, then escaped. One of the victims went on to die. The culprit went on to continue invading houses in Hochizuki, murder and destroy property. After 30 minutes of this, he escaped Fujimura by foot. The crime was so sudden that the inhabitants and the local police couldn't do anything about it before it was over. The incident came to light when the local police reported it to the Metropolitan Police. Since cars weren't widespread in the area yet, the doctors from the surrounding villages hurried over with their horse-drawn carriages. That was how much of a big deal it was. The police had gathered a number of officers and established a perimeter to surround the culprit, but in the end they failed to arrest him. The witness, his blood stains, and the lost items made them conclude that the culprit had changed his clothes somewhere up the mountain, then escaped by going down the river. They followed after him, but since it was the end of the year and it was hard to get around, it took them time to find proper footprints. On January 3rd of the following year, the prefecture police noted that the perimeter was broken, but this wasn't reported. The investigations that followed bore no fruit, and the newspapers and magazines wrote a lot about the escaped or hidden murderer. But then, at one afternoon at the end of January, a man showed up in a police station in Ubashi, Tokyo, and said that he was the murderer who escaped Fujiyoshi. There had been much speculation about where the culprit was from, but it turned out that he was actually a local, which raised a few questions. One of them was, why couldn't the locals figure out who it was? This question was left unanswered, and the man who'd turned himself in, Kihei Tochitani, 30 years old, became a subject of significant controversy. From this point on, the major newspapers simply reported how the trial was going, while the magazines just had a ton of opinion pieces. Kinosuke father commented that the Migurama were actively keeping journalists from entering Yasumizu. At the same time, they didn't resist the police, and in fact were highly cooperative. But in the end, Yasumizu wasn't really mentioned in the trial reports. It could have been the weak legislative system of the time or the result of the Migurama's efforts. Under such circumstances, they held Kihei Tochitani's trial. He insisted on several things. That he was too drunk to remember the details. However, he was certain that he was the murderer. He'd lived in that area and was on bad terms with his neighbors to the point of holding a serious grudge. When he sobered up, he became scared and ran away, and since he knew he couldn't keep running forever, he just turned himself in. He was too afraid to return to Fujiyoshi. Some had found his statement that he'd attacked 20 households in 30 minutes questionable, but it was a trial under significant public scrutiny. And since Kihei Tochitani admitted to the crime, he was executed based solely on that. It happened 2 years after his arrest. The capital punishment was carried out, and he departed this world without further comment of note. The news agencies were now all covering World War II, so these serial murders ended up being forgotten. Also, Kinosuke's father noted something about him. 3 years before the incident, Kihei Tochitani had been sent to Yasumizu because of trouble with his neighbors. This is interesting. This is interesting.
そうだな。おそらくこれは、土地谷喜兵衛が読み人伝説を模倣し、起こした事件だ。
It is. Kihei Tochitani probably based his crimes on the Yomibito legends.
休みずでの暮らしがそう長いわけでもないのに、そんな事件を。
That would be a funny thing to happen there. Anyway, I feel like I need a break for a drink and possibly the bathroom, so I'm gonna take that break. if you guys need to do something like stretch and that, feel free to do so. Otherwise, if you need something to do, be sure to check out today's question of the day. If you don't see it, the command in the title of the stream while I'm live should bring it up. And I hope you can keep people entertained while I'm away, Titan. I will be right back. Alright, I'm back. Let me check on chat before I get back to things, though. Just to make sure I didn't miss anything. Alright. I don't need that happening. It looks like I didn't miss anything there. About over here. Alright. Nothing really there. Alright, so now we can continue things on. Hopefully that didn't take too long, guys. Let's see. He wasn't in Yasumizu for long, yet he went and did something so awful.
富士吉村民に共通の読み人を恐れる気持ちが裏返しとなり、恐ろしき読み人と同一化を試みたのかもしれんな。
All of Fujiyoshi is afraid of Yomobito, so maybe he turned it around and tried becoming one with them to seem
あ
scary.
るいは、長者が地質する大昔の反乱のことをどこかで聞いていたか。
Or perhaps he'd heard of the old rebellion that we village heads know about.
そして僕が気にしているのはこの時期のことです。
I'm mostly curious about the timing.
この事件が起きてからおよそ2年後に例の戦中の本物の宴が発生している。
The feast during the war, the first real one, happened about 2 years after this
ま
incident.
るで同じではないか。
It's like a
そう
repeat.
です。500年前反乱を起こした連中を抑え込むために侵内侵攻なんてものをでっち上げた。
Yes, it's like the time. It's like that time 500 years ago when they created the Shinai faith to keep the rebels in check. Of course, there were no mentions of the feast in the articles. The next notable thing was the time when the war ended and the soldiers returned to Fujiyoshi. The news articles were accompanied by village PR notices and photos. One of the men in the photos had the name Osabaru Makishima. Wait, Makishima? Is he the grandfather of Konzo? Because Konzo is a guy that looks like Heihachi to me. I don't think we'll see him right now, though. That face and expression, I had no doubt that he's related to Konzo Makishima. Yep, it looks like he was, even though we don't get to see anything about it right now. So for those that haven't seen Konzo, he'll show up likely later since we have to do multiple loops to get these keys. Many from Fujiyoshi had departed for the war, and naturally some of them were from Yasumizu. Also, according to the reports, they had a notably good survival rate. They'd also achieved a lot on the front lines, and the PR said it was the blessing of the Okami-sama. In a different document, Oh. Yeah. Yeah. Well, the raging, I don't get what the name is, but there's kind of an interesting story that I kind of read up about it. In that you could rate it many different ways, and different territories had it differently. But welcome in, Infinite. How are you doing? Glad you made it here. Got another buddy with us in chat there with you named Titan. He's a pretty cool dude. I'm doing good. I'm just enjoying this story here. Yeah, Titan's a pretty cool dude. He streams too. In fact, I should probably shout you both out here. So, let's see. Let's see, so... But I'm glad you came. Let's see. Alright, there's Titan. Yeah. And no problem, Titan. No problem, Titan. No problem, me too. You both deserve it. Because you're both cool individuals. Let's see here, back to this. In a different document, it was said that they had charms that resembled the Okami symbols used in the Mountain Festival. There was a photo that showed one of these crests wrinkled from wear. The shape was new to me. However, the 3 diamond-like symbols made me think that it was related to the one I was familiar with, which is actually pictured here. The next to it said that some chose to wear ominous symbols instead. For reference, there was the divine crest of Great Lord Shinai. It was... It does sound chaotic for sure, so it appeals to me too. Let's see. It was actually my first time seeing it, and apparently they couldn't use it as a good luck charm because it was just too important. Well then, if it was that sacred, it made sense I hadn't seen it in Yasumizu. Let's see. Well then, if it was that sacred, it made sense that I hadn't seen it in Yasumizu. It was a bad place after all. Burn them like the Mad King. I say we bring out Klee, Yoimiya, Bernice, and Ryza, and then they go to town on everything. See. Next, we skipped the unimportant bits, such as the election results and major staff changes. We went ahead a few decades and arrived at an article from the 80s. This was pretty bad. Cholera outbreak in Mountain Village, 4 dead. It was a pretty simple incident. Apparently someone who'd gone on a trip overseas had infected the village. The name of patient 0 was hidden, but it had to be one of the village heads. They were the only ones here who could travel to other countries. It was damn awful to read about, but apparently the disease spread through water contaminated by the first victim's vomit and etc. And there were victims in both Fujiyoshi as well as Yasumizu. Also, it was only reported after the disease had subsided, which was probably caused by the Migurama intelligence network. The Migurama are sounding pretty shady to me. I'm not too sure about the rest of you. Like, they probably do want to keep things under wraps until they get things situated, though. Yeah, it definitely does denote other patients.
これ時期的には野里さんもご存知のはずの事件ですよね。中学生かそこらです。
Yeah, that's true. But right now we're just delving into the details behind a big mystery here. A lot of what the loop is, and the loop that I already told you, Infinite, was part of the plot. The game encourages the loops here, and so far the loops right now are just us gathering information about what's been going on. This one has been quite heavy so far. So let's see. Looking at when it happened, you should have been alive during this, right? A sock drawer, huh? What? Definitely is scandalous, but it's funny either way. See, looking at when it happened, you should have been alive during this, right? You were in middle school, I assume?
その通り。もちろん知っているとも。何しろ私もかかったからね。
Yes, I know about it too well. I was infected myself after all.
コレラにですか?
You had cholera? No, huh? You had cholera?
ああ、そうだ。というか、あれには相当の人数がやられたからな。特に。
Yes, in fact it got... Yes, in fact it got to a lot of people, especially here in
そうで
Yasumizu.
すって。今おられる方も。
What? Even those still here?
確か、そうだな。牧島王やら、山脇さんやら。あとはそうだ。室もかかっていたはずだぞ。
It happened to Sir Makishima, Yamawaki-san, and oh yes, even Muro had it.
大事だったんですね。
The outbreak must have been pretty big.
その通りだ。後で知ったところによれば、野里は早々にコレラだということを看破していたのに、身車の連中が。
It was later on. No, it was later on. I found out that the Masato quickly identified it as cholera, but the Migurama.
一体何が?
Oh my. That's probably what happened. Let's see. What?
コレラにこそ神内様の加護が効くとか言って、わけのわからん祈祷を行って、野里の措置を妨害したのだよ。
They made the absurd claim that Shinai-sama's protection would make short work of the cholera and performed some strange ritual while attempting to prevent the Nasato from applying proper
それ
treatment.
で状況は悪化し、遅れて発症した私は、身内が後回しだと言ってかなり捨て置かれたのだ。
Thanks to that, the situation grew worse, and I, who got infected late, had my treatment postponed because I was one of us.
医者の鏡みたいな家ですね。野里家は。
I see the Nosato are a family of model
ダ
doctors.
メなものか。単に身車が示す順に治療していただけだ。
As if we simply adhere to the order established by the Migurama.
もちろん安水は長く捨て置かれ、結果的に住人2名と看病に当たった植松の者2名が死んだ。
Of course, Yasumizu was low on the list, and that caused the deaths of 2 infected and 2 Uematsu who were treating the people.
なんですって。植松が2名。
What? 2 Uematsu?
あの頃植松にはまだ数人が残っていたが、そのほとんどは民間療法を行って逆に病気に感染してしまっていた。
The Uematsu still had a few members back then, but most of them were infected while trying to make use of their folk
そ
medicine.
れが露見した時はすでに手の施しようがないほど悪化した2名がそのまま亡くなったのだよ。
How about if those gods were also associated with the primordial one of Genshin Titan? That would be funny. Once that was found out, the disease had advanced so much that they were beyond help and died soon after.
植松の没落を決定づけたと言っても過言ではなかろう。身車が敵
It's safe to
をしていれば
It's safe to say that event sealed the fate of the Uematsu if the Migurama had handled things properly.
いや違うな。野里がクス氏の家が連中のことなど聞かず正しく動いていればよかったのだ。
Yeah. See, got something empty there, Titan. Maybe it was a emoji. Let me check that out. Yeah. I saw that. Or the joke. That was definitely not fun in Genshin when we became cubes. But then again, it was just part of the story. Let's see. No, that's not it. If the Nosato had done what any proper family of doctors would do and simply ignored them and done the right thing.
ちなみに、植松里香子さんは病気にはかからなかったんですか？
By the way, was Rikaku Uematsu-san infected?
彼女は当時9歳だぞ。その家業に加わるにはまだ若い。
She was only 5 at the time. Surely you understand that she was too young to partake in the family trade. And the family trade, for those of you that don't know, were harlots.
ああ、なるほど。
Oh man, that would be awful. That would be definitely awful there. Because I think that Adios of Trells wouldn't be that cruel either. But I definitely see the ruler of space doing that. Oh my. That would be funny, but Star Rail and Genshin are kind of connected from what I hear. Like, it's more so all alternate universes based on the whole Honkai thing. I had it explained to me once by someone that plays on the Asia servers, but I don't remember all the details. Of course they are jerks, Infinite. They pretty much all are, both fictional and real, or at least real world ones, because as far as I know, all the gods are mythical. It's just dependent on whether we're talking about the mythos of the fictional world, which tends to be sometimes real in those regards, or if they're the mythos of the past. Let's see. Oh, I see. I knew what he meant, but something didn't feel right. His eyes betrayed a sense of confusion and his tone lacked
何
confidence.
か隠されていますか？
That would be a funny incident. Or how about Traveler is banished to the world of Wuwa, and so Traveler meets Rover. Let's see. Are you hiding something?
何もない。
No.
いや、何でもない。とにかく、これも我が藤吉村の期待を示す証左ではあろうが、宴とは直接は関係あるまい。
Yes, it would be. Let's see. It's nothing anyway, though this shows how warped Fujiyoshi is. It's not directly related to the feast.
そうですね。
Yeah, you're right. I wouldn't push any further this time. Another major article was one about a corpse that had washed up in the local part of Saranaga, officially known as Saranagawa, apparently. It was a woman from Chiba. Yeah. I don't think I've looked into that theory. You can send it to me on Discord later, though. Let's see. It was a woman from Chiba, and she'd had a search party out for her. It said that he simply committed suicide.
読み意味の宴と関係あります？
Is this related to the feast?
これまでの宴とは日付が合わない。おそらく関係のない自殺者だろう。
No, the date doesn't match any of the feasts so far. She must be just an unrelated suicide victim. Hey Mira, how are you doing?
Bakaな町の奴らが山ん中で首吊って獣に食われることもある。俺やおやっさんが苦労して片付ける羽目になる。
Ah, you woke up, huh? Yep. Kind of a busy day for me in chat, but that's fine. I'm just glad you're all here. And how did you sleep, Mira? Let's see. Here we go. Let's see. That's good. And did you check out today's question of the day, Mira? Titan has brought it up quite a few times, and we've had, so far, 2 interesting answers. Were you playing Pokemon again? Let's see. Ooh, chocolate cheesecake. That's kind of a mix between what Titan said and Justice over on YouTube said. What about you, Infinite? What's your answer to today's question of the day? And while I'm waiting, I'll just read this more. Let's see, then there's the idiots from the city coming here. Let's see. Then there's the idiots from the city coming here just to hang themselves. Oh. Oh man. We got plenty of chocolate people today. Ooh, I thought I heard someone new come in here. Okay, I'll be sure to check it out. Lava Cake, and welcome in, Artificial. How are you doing? Yep, it definitely is. Man, this is a busy day today. Still, I'm glad you all are here, regardless of whether you're watching it. Alright. That sounds good. Let's see. There's the idiots from the city coming here to hang themselves or getting eaten by wild beasts. Me and the old man always have to deal with the mess.
バナナに死体が流れることも珍しくねえ。渓流釣りだかなんだか知らねえが、上流は危ねえっつうのによ。
It's not rare for Serenaga to bring us corpses either. I don't know if they're mountain fishers or something, but it's dangerous upstream, damn it.
首都圏からの遠征自殺者ですか？
Alright. Let's see. It's kind of getting close to time, but I also want to get the key from this fruit. So I'm gonna probably try and go until I get the key, even though it'll be over time of when I usually end things. So I hope you guys are all ready for an info dump and that we can all have some fun and intrigue together. Yeah, let's see. A city person who'd gone all the way here to die, huh?
まあ、うがってみるなら、長者の誰かが関わって殺したのかもしれんが、その場合はサラナガには流さんだろうよ。
Yeah, maybe so. But, and if you need... Let's see. Another one, huh? Oh. It did, huh? Why was it that it led you to getting lost? I know that there's a lot of info dump here, but at the same time, it's to explain things. That's pretty much what it has been, yep. Alright, sounds good. Let's see. Well, maybe one of the village heads had her killed, but if that's the case, he wouldn't have left her in Saranaga.
では、これはいいとして。
Then let's ignore that. Oh, and if you do need help in the context Infinite, you can check out the past streams. I'm not too sure how long the VODs of this game is going to be up on Twitch here, but over on YouTube, I tend to make playlists of all the streams I do. The playlists are normally to help people just watch a particular game. Alright. But yeah, the VODs are here to help you, if that's necessary. Let's see. Now back to this, then let's ignore that.
この8年前の大雨災害がどうのっていうのは、藤吉とは関係ないように見えますが。
What's this about a heavy rain from 8 years ago, though? It doesn't seem related to Fujiyoshi.
逆に藤吉が乗っていないことが重要なのだろうよ。各地の土砂崩れは報道されているのに藤吉のはない。
I feel that it's important that Fujiyoshi's not mentioned there. There's reports of landslides all over the area, but none for Fujiyoshi. Oh. I see. So even the ones who supposedly died in the landslide were hidden from the public.
めぼしいものはないか。
Besides that, there's nothing of note.
港区連続火災、放火の疑い。なんでこんな事件が？
What about this? Serial fires in Minato-ku. Possibly arson. Why is it here?
手記に説明があるぞ。報道にはないが、放火された7軒の建物は全て同じ持ち主のものだと。
It's explained in the diary. It's not reported, but all the 7 buildings set on fire belonged to the same person.
というと、
What does that mean?
身車家だよ。連中は中だけではなく、外にも不動産を持っているのだ。
It's the Migurama. They have real estate outside Fujiyoshi as well. So they're essentially like the rich people in real life, huh?
なるほど。そういった資産から収入を得てるのか。しかし一体どうしてそんな。
I see, so they gain funds that way too. But why would they do this?
宗教は儲かるということなんじゃないのかね。500年もの歴史があれば、もう新興宗教とは言えんだろう。
Because the religion is profitable, no? A faith with half a millennium of history behind it can't be considered a new religion.
おそらくは、我々のような骨の髄まで神内明神にやられている連中でない、神内教の在外信者は多数いるのだよ。
There must be a lot of Shinai believers outside as well, though. They're probably not as fanatical as us.
中には、何代も前から玉串料とか言って、金銭を払っている者もいるのではないかね。
I imagine that some of their families have been donating to the shrine for
もしか
generations.
して身車は宗教法人格を持ってますか？
Are the Migurama a recognized religion?
さあ、そこまでは知らんね。しかし、そういうのは国からいろいろ口出しをされるのではないのかね。
I don't know that much, but I imagine that the country would be pretty involved with them if it was, no?
どうだろう。そっちは詳しくない。
I don't know. I'm not well versed in that.
さて、このくらいでおしまいのようだが、
Now this seems to be the end. Yeah. We'd read the entire diary. A whole 3 hours had passed since we'd started. The mist would come soon. I had learned a lot from this. But if you asked me, all I'd gotten here was maybes. Nothing was certain yet. Even so, I thought it was more than enough for this loop.
どうしようかね。我が父も結局、何かしらの真実にたどり着くことはできぬまま。
Oh, what to do? It looks like... oh, what to do? It looks like even father went insane and drank poison without reaching the truth.
私が君の言う通り、これから宴に巻き込まれて死ぬとすれば、
If you are right
いずれ
and...
この後を継ぐのだろうかね。
If you are right and I'm about to die in the feast, my brother would probably follow his footsteps.
君が死んでしまえば全てなかったことになるんだったか。これは。
Or wait, if you die... Or wait, if you die, will this all have never happened? Oh dear, looks like there's nothing we can do. Well, this has only happened for 2 people. But you're not one of those 2 people, sadly, Kinosuke. It's only our protag and another girl, so far. His wry grin pained my heart a bit. I had to say
申
it.
し訳ありません。野里清之助さん。
I'm sorry, Kinosuke.
君が謝
Masato-san.
ることではなかろう。こんなバカなことをしている藤吉村が全ての元凶だ。
That's a funny thing to think about. I haven't really looked into the history of why the eye patch was so common, at least in our terms of fiction, of why it's so common. I've got a historian friend that I could probably ask about that, but I'm not too sure if it's up his alley, since he's mainly in aviation and I want to say Mesoamerica, since he knows about the Incans and the Mayans and that. And then his wife knows a lot about Egypt since she is a historian specializing in Egypt. Well, let's see. It's nothing you have to apologize for. It's Fujiyoshi's fault for doing something so absurd.
しかし結局、ここまで皆が狂気にとらわれる答えは何なの？
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of interesting that you say that, but I wouldn't doubt it. That's kind of after the Shakespearean thing, isn't it? Yeah. Because, actually, wait, I think I heard that Shakespearean English, aka early modern English, was a lot like pirate talk in of itself, too. But that is interesting to know there, Infinite. Let's see. But what is the cause of the madness controlling everyone here?
迷信を信じる心と反乱を恐れる心。
Is it really just a fear of superstition and rebellion?
いいえ。違います。
No, that's not it.
神様のせいです。
It's God's fault.
はあ？なんだ？君も結局は神仏に責任を転嫁するのかね？かつてのロサとの先達のように。
Huh? You too? You're going to shift blame to the divine, just like my forefathers did?
そうだ。君はそもそも、君が体験してきた数々の怪奇現象に対して、科学的に説明がつくと言っていただろうに。
Also, you still haven't given an explanation for the paranormal happenings you'd experienced.
すみません。神様の件についても、おおむね科学的な、というか、理屈をつけることができると思います。
That is kind of funny to think about it that way, Titan. But of course, it's probably not far off the mark. It would probably take a lot of looking into linguistic history. Though the only things that I know for sure was our English language came from the Anglo-Saxon, and Old English is actually called Anglo-Saxon, I believe, at least if I remember right. I don't know the transition of the names too well, but essentially it went Anglo-Saxon of Old English, and then you had a few other things, or probably it went straight to it, but sometime after that, then you had the English of the Canterbury Tales, and then after the English of the Canterbury Tales, you've got Shakespeare, and then sometime after Shakespeare, you've got modern English. But the only way to see the Anglo-Saxon stuff for real these days is if you actually got your hands on the original work of Beowulf instead of a translation into modern English. Still, I'm not too sure about all that. There's some gaps in my knowledge. I'm sure somebody else would know. Now, let's see, back to here. I'm sorry, but I actually think I can give a scientific or rather reasonable explanation for God.
何?
What?
ただ、これについては、まだ僕の中で完全にはまとまっていない。
Though I still need to properly process
その代わ
this.
り、他のものについては、説明はつきますね。
Instead, I can give clear explanations for everything else. I'd missed my chance to properly apologize. How much time did we have, I wondered. Would they wait for long?
では、読み意味の宴の不可思議を、すべて紐解いてみたまえよ。
Then explain the mysteries of the feast.
必ず与えられるという汚れは、一体どう説明するつもりなんだね。
How do you explain the inescapable corruption?
そうがどうしようが見つかり、断罪されるその理不尽さは、どうやって成し得ると思っているのかね。
How does it find and punish you no matter how well you hide? You got a good point there, Kiyonosuke. Yeah, we will find all the treasure and take it for ourselves. Let's see. How does it find and punish you no matter how well you hide?
監視カメラと盗聴器です。
Cameras and listening devices. He stared blankly for a moment, then laughed. Well, this is the human hands kind of thing, and that's how a lot of these superstition stories boil down to eventually. Though I have heard that the Hound of the Baskervilles was originally supposed to be more supernatural than it was. That's funny to think about there, Titan. Let's see, he stared blankly for a moment then laughed.
何を言い出すのかと思 思えば、監視カメラ
Of all the answers, cameras? Well, sure, there may be weaknesses in cameras, but there could be other people too, Kinosuke. After all, there has to be a human explanation behind this.
そんなもの、戦時中にあったわけがないだろう。
There's no way they had those in the war. I think they had them because you do have photographs from World War II.
戦時中にあったとは言いませんよ。というか、8年前にあったかどうかもわからないです。
I'm not saying that they did. In fact, I'm not sure if there were any 8 years ago either.
ただ、低レベルなものはあったかもしれない。ぶっちゃけどこかに糸電話でも吊るしてあったのかもしれません。
Though there might have been something basic back then. Hell, it could have been 2 cans and a string. That's kind of interesting. It probably was, but it reminds me that not only is it the old phone thing, oh my. Oh my. Yeah, that's a good one there, Titan. But like as I was saying, them mentioning the 2 cans and a string, a lot of us, particularly my generation, we think of like the old phone thing and how we learn it works. My cousin used to be married to an engineer, and he like took apart a speaker, and interestingly enough, the internals reminded me of the 2 can and string thing, so it's kind of interesting how both of those tie back. The speakers are pretty much the same kind of basis as the phones.
あるいはシンプルに、スパイを休みずに置いておくとかね。
Or perhaps they just put a spy in here.
物騒だな。
Yeah. Let's see. Now that would be excessive.
言いたいのは、安水集落は隅々にわたり監視されているということです。
What I'm saying is that all of Yasumizu is being observed.
少女はそんなに暇ではない。
It can't be. The village heads are too busy for that.
でも一方で、神内様の信仰を盤石にするために、信じられないほどの労力を費やしてきたのも長者でしょう。
But they're the same people who'd spent unbelievable amounts of effort to create the foundation for the Shinai faith.
わかりますよ。あなたの気持ちは。
I
バ
understand.
カなことがあるかと考えました。
I understand how you feel. You find it absurdly hard to believe.
そのバカなと疑う気持ちが、トリックを隠蔽する最大の仕掛けです。
But the incredulity you're feeling right now is exactly how magic tricks are kept secret.
マジシャンが芸を披露するとき、その種は往々にして、そんなバカな手に引っかかるはずないというようなものか。
When you look at what magicians do, you find out that they're either things that were too silly for someone to fall for,
あるいは、そんな大仕掛けをまさか用意しているわけがないという真理の穴に隠されているものですよ。
or extremely complex setups that made you believe they just couldn't have prepared them. That's kind of interesting that he says that like that. It reminded me back when I was actively attending church, there was this person that I knew that liked to do a card trick where a card would show up here. And it was kind of neat, but you could also figure out the trick just by thinking about it. It came from back of his hand, so it had to be right about here. And he just somehow got it quickly into his hand. That's how I likely think he did it. I didn't see it for all the steps in that. But that's just the only way that I could think of it, and you can see through plenty of tricks just by thinking of how they would work out.
観客全部が桜だとかね。ちなみに僕はこれも最初は疑いましたよ。安水全員が決死のドッキリ要員だとか。
The one where the audience turns into cherry blossoms is a good example. I'd actually been suspecting that all of Yasumizu were the targets of a really bad prank ever since I'd come here.
待ちたまえ。それでは不可解に傷つけられた死体については。
Well, wait, then how do you explain the severely damaged
死
corpses?
体を運搬して重機か何かで破壊すれば実現はできますよね。
They just carried them away and destroyed them with machinery or
お
something.
かしいだろう。霧の休みずからは出られないと君が言ったことだ。
That doesn't make sense. You yourself said you can't leave Yasumizu once it's covered by mist. Well, that's a good point there, Kiyonosuke, but they could have also brought the stuff necessary on site. It just depends on what they used.
地下の抜け穴でもあるんじゃないですか。
There must be secret underground passages or something.
待て待て。じゃあ本気で犬をけしかけて殺した死体をわざわざ抜け穴を通って上富士吉まで持ち帰って。
What? Wait. So they actually let loose some dogs, kill their targets, use the secret passages to bring the corpses back to Kami Fujiyoshi?
これを手間暇かけて損壊して安水まで持ち帰っていると、そんな馬鹿げたことを。
Then waste time to damage them and bring them back to Yasumizu? That's absurd. Too
慣
absurd.
れているからみんな信じる。
And that's exactly why everyone believes
じ
them.
ゃあ狼が触れると家の鍵が勝手に開いたというのは。
Then what about the doors that open when you touch
遠
them?
隔操作の電子錠でしょうね。
Must be electronic remote controlled
あ
locks.
の貧相な。失礼。しかし実際粗末な作りの安水の住居もかね。
In those shabby apologies, simple looking dwellings in Yasumizu?
ボロい木板でも電子錠は仕込めます。そうすれば実際見事なカムフラージュになるでしょうね。
Even the worst buildings can have electronic locks. It make for a good camouflage even.
じゃあ
Then
血で記されるという過去の印は一体何だというのだね。
how do you explain the guardian marks drawn in blood? Well, Kiyonosuke, I would say that they used locks to get in and draw those marks. Let's see what Fusaishi has to say.
過去による託戦が血文字で伝えられるなどというのもありえないだろう。人間がやったら気づくはずだ。
The results of the snake's investigations are also delivered in blood text, right? You definitely know if it was a human.
麻酔ガスなら一発です。
Anesthetic gas gets the job done easily.
あなたならご存知のはずだ。亜酸化窒素とオクトゲンチラインの混合ガスは理想的な全身麻酔を実現する。
Surely you know that a mix of nitrous oxide and a top of octogen creates the perfect anesthetic.
周期もほとんどない。これはある意味危険なので、普通はあえて匂いをつけるそうですが、今回はそれもプラスに働く。
It also has no smell. It's dangerous because of this, people often add something with a scent to it. But in this case, that's a benefit.
バカを言うな。確かに君は少しばかり医療知識があるようだが、麻酔は専門医がいるほど難しい技術だ。
Don't be stupid. Well, I'll admit you know a bit of medicine, but anesthesia is so difficult that there's even specialists. Well, I doubt just a person of medicine would know this. A toxicologist would likely know it too, because toxicology is the basis of medicine.
いるんでしょう。野里家以外の専門医が。
Well, there are specialists here besides the Nosato, right?
いたとしても、その上で各住居にさらなる改造を無断で施し、必要な密閉空間を作ったとしても、
Even if there are, and even if they modified the dwellings here enough to create isolated spaces,
生命維持設備もない場所で本人の同意なく混沌させるような乱暴な施術で確実な蘇生が実現できるとは。
there's no guarantee that anyone could safely come back from forced loss of consciousness in a place without any life support. Oh?
そうです。確実に蘇生しなくてもいい。
Exactly, they don't have to come back.
運悪く死亡させて構わない。死体を損壊して家の外に放り出しておけば
Even if
見分けはつかない。
Even if someone ended up dying, they could just destroy the evidence, toss the body outside, and make them look like rule breakers who didn't shelter.
バカなバカな、そんなバカみたいな卑劣な。
No, that is so absurd and
あり
vile.
ますよ。僕だってこんなオチを明かされたら納得できない。
I know, I have a hard time accepting this too.
でもそれが可能である以上、これは神業でも何でもない。
But if it's possible, then it's not the work of a
ト
god.
リックで実現できる不思議な事象は全てトリックによって発生してるんですよ、野里さん。
If something mysterious can be explained using mundane means, then it was caused by mundane means, Nasaru-san.
ああ、わかった。実現可能だということ、君がそう信じていること。
Okay, I understand. Okay, I understand that it's possible to make it happen. Why you believe that it's how it is,
君がさっき謝罪をした意味も、
and why you apologized.
この部屋が放置されているということを、荷車の連中は
The fact that
入れなかったということだ。
the fact that this room was left as is means that they either didn't find it or couldn't enter it.
しかし、こうして大っぴらに探索をし、大声で議論をするからに、
But now that they've made it such a show of searching and argued so loudly,
先方は気づくはずだ。君の言う通り、カメラやら盗聴器やらが仕込んであるなら、
they must have noticed us, assuming they, as you said, have cameras and listening devices. Yep, and they're gonna come and take us into oblivion, Kinosuke.
そして、そのことに気づいたとすれば、
And if they noticed us,
我々は生かすことはできない。
and if they noticed us, they cannot let us live. Oh my gosh! The mist is inside the building!
宴の開始を待たず、殺す必要が。
They must kill us before the feast starts. This is...
そう
Yes. My consciousness began to fade. The irresistible drowsiness took over my body.
君の勝ちだな。
You win.
ほらね。
See?
だが、
But didn't you have...
方法はなかったのか。
But didn't you have a better way to go about this?
すみません。
I'm sorry. Unable to stand, I fell to my knees. I hit my forehead on the desk, but the pain was minimal. It didn't kill me, huh?
あるだろう。
I know you have. I know you have one, old man.
これ
There. This is it. He could still move. Crawling on his hands and knees, he opened a drawer and took out a small glass bottle. Oh
君
my.
が死ねば全ては戻るの。
If you die, it will. If you die, it will all be undone, won't it?
ならばこれを
Then take this Asunite.
捕まって拷問でもされたら厄介だ。
It trouble you if they caught and interrogated you. I appreciated that. I reached out, took it, and put it in my mouth.
私も
I'll have some too.
飲もう。たとえなかったことに
Even if this will
しても
all be erased.
先祖の積み重ねてきたものを
Wasting all
見
that
する。
my wasting all that my forefathers gathered would be a sin. Get up. Just one last sentence.
しない。
I won't waste it. I promise. I just had to say that much. I now had a duty to fulfill for this awkward man. With every loop, I gained not only memories, but one-sided responsibilities as well. That meant that I really had to save everyone, right? Death came quick. And there's the key. Alright. There's usually a hint corner after this, and to speed things up, to find out where to go, I'm gonna try and take advantage of that and save things at the point where it tells me where the next key is gonna be. That way I can get up and going the next route. But like I said, I reached my goal. So you can view it in the keys list. So key 8, Will of the Crow. You can view it in the keys list. The route unlocked by the keys represented by the same number on the scenario chart. Game over. Bad ending number 11. Watch the hint corner. Yes, because I don't feel like going through the entire chart right now to find where I have to be.
やったな大将。最後の鍵の一つ、キー8をゲットだ。
You did it, Chief. You obtained key 8, one of the final
今
keys.
回は回答編の中でも相当に長かったな。しかも、
This was one of
だっ
the
た。早速まとめようぜ。
this was one of the longest parts of the solution chapter, eh? And there was a ton of content. Let's sum it up.
今回のバッドエンド11、題して、清之助と暗がりでイチャイチャした結果暗殺についてだが、
Bad ending 11. Flirting in the dark with the Kinosuke assassination.
手に入った情報は大きく2つ。長者側が調べ上げた藤吉村の長い歴史。そして、
You obtained
リンゴの目と呼ばれる監視網だ。
You obtained two pieces of information this time. First was the long history of Fujiyoshi is investigated by the village heads. Second was the surveillance network known as the Eye of the Migurama.
監視網については、久石春明は結構前からうすうす気づいてた。
Yeah,
あの
it is kind of funny that a sheep is our helper. Yep, you can say that for sure. And it is a holy sheep. Aruaki Fusaishi had faintly suspected the existence of a surveillance network for a while now. That dumbass should have said something sooner.
歴史については宴や神内明神の本質に大きく踏み込むものだったな。
As for the history aspect, he got to the heart of the feasts, and Great Lord Shinai, I see.
これらがどう結実するのか。最後の加速への期待を高めといてくれ。
How will these bear fruit? Get hyped for the final
ち
acceleration.
なみに、ここまで順路沿いに来た大将は、最後の鍵のうち4つはもう手に入っているはずだ。
By the way, if you've been going through the normal route, you should already have 4 of the last keys by this point. Except this is just the second one that I got.
このうち3つを使えば、2、ノーム、の、9、便所泊するかの鍵を開けられる。
If you use 3 of them, you can unlock the locket to Densmith's hide in the outhouse.
ここで便所かよ。とは、まあ言わねえでくれ。すげえ大事な分岐点だからよ。
You might find that really weird, but trust me, it's a really important
が
branch.
揃ってねえ大将は、エンド3を見て、流れの確認をするのもいいと思うぜ。
Well, then we could just make the sheep into cheese. After all, there is goat cheese, so why can't there be sheep cheese? For those of you who haven't gotten the necessary key, he said it's not a bad idea to see ending 3 and check the flow of events.
よし、今回はここまで。次も元気に死んでこい。
Okay, that's it. For this time, die another hearty death next time.
そういう夢だったってわけだ。次はもっとうまくやれ。羊が1匹、羊が2匹。
Yes, we do. Anyway, this is where the loop occurs. I'm gonna check on the keys that I've got, though. Because I want to end things off right at the start of one of the places to get the keys. So let's see, we've got 3. Okay, 8 was the recent one that we got. We're still missing 9. And we're missing 19. Alright, so we need the one that's the 8. I doubt it's the dense mist, but we can check it out. But we're just looking for one that takes the 8th key is all. So 20, no. Okay, that one was 3. Okay, so we can't do this one because it's got the requirements of keys 8 and 19. We've only got key 8. So it's not dense mist that we're at. So this one. Okay, that's 20. Okay, not that one. Not there. Okay, not there. There's 10. Okay, not there. 15. Okay. Doesn't look like it's here. And what about Yomi? Not really seeing anything on Yomi. And let's check darkness. $17 and $18. 20 and $3. Okay, so we can't do that one either. Alright, this is kind of weirding me out right now. So I'm gonna look at a guide here just to see where it tells me where to go, because this is confusing me. And I also, like I said, want to start things off on the next stream with getting the next key. That's exactly how I feel, Titan. Okay. So, it looks like I have to go to Wit after all. And passing the time. Alright, so this looks like the one that's telling me to go, even though it doesn't tell me the key number. I'm gonna speed it up here, and then we're gonna save here. That's what was confusing me. But I'm gonna save here and call it. I thank you all for coming, especially you, Justice, over on YouTube, and you, Infinite and Titan and Artificial, as well as you, Mira. I wasn't expecting you all to come, but I'm glad that you did, and it made things even more enjoyable that you did. If you guys are watching this over on YouTube and you enjoyed it, be sure to leave a like and share this with anybody else that you think might enjoy this. And if you'd like the chance to chill with me again, be sure to hit that subscribe button and bell notification icon to hopefully be notified of when I'll be live again. As for when I'll be live again, I want to say tomorrow. Tomorrow is usually a day off for me because I've got lunch plans, but it's also kind of a random day in which I stream or not. It's just one of those weeks that it's not been consistently lunch plans, so I'm thinking of tomorrow, probably the afternoon, because I've got things to take care of. But I try to keep people up to date on that on the posts tab of my YouTube channel regarding those details, especially about changes. And if you guys are watching this on Twitch, like a whole bunch of you were today, then you all know what to do. Speaking of Twitch, let me try and find somebody to raid. Okay, let's see. Don't feel like raiding that one. We need somebody to chill to. So, we're gonna look up Trails in the Sky. Okay. Let's see, so... Okay. Let's see, we've got SC. We are going to be rating a Baby Soul Tetris. I don't know about them, but it's worth giving them a try. They are in the middle of Sky FC Remake. They say Chapter 2. But give them my regards and tell them I will be there when I can. And with that out of the way, I thank you all again for coming. Bye!